In the great city of Peking, the emperor sat upon his dragon throne and issued a command that echoed through every province. He demanded the casting of the greatest bell the world had ever known, a bell whose voice would reach every corner of the empire, whose bronze would shine like captured sunlight. The decree fell upon the master founder of the capital, whose skill with metals was legendary. The master founder was a patient man, weathered by decades of flame and forge, but he was also a father. His daughter, young and gentle as a spring morning, lived beside the workshop where the fires never died. She knew the songs of melting metal, the sighs of cooling bronze. She loved her father with a devotion that ran deeper than any river in the empire. He gathered the finest materials the empire could offer: copper from the western mountains, tin from the southern streams, silver and gold from the royal treasury itself. He built a furnace vast as a small house, its walls thick with clay, its mouth yawning like a dragon's lair. Workers labored day and night, stirring the molten sea of metal until it glowed white-hot and shimmered like living fire. On the day of the first casting, the city held its breath. The emperor's officials gathered in silk robes, watching from a distance as the master founder gave the signal. The molten metal poured forth in a blazing river, cascading into the mold with a roar that shook the ground. But something was wrong. The metals hissed and spat, refusing to blend. The flow hardened, and the first bell emerged cracked and lifeless. Again and again the founder tried. He adjusted the temperatures, changed the proportions, prayed to the gods of fire and earth. Each time the blazing river poured into the mold, and each time the result was the same: a cracked shell, a hollow sound, a bell that would never sing. The furnace devoured mountains of metal and gave back nothing but failure. The workers whispered that the bell was cursed, that no human skill could make it ring. Word of the failures reached the palace, and the emperor's patience dried up like a puddle in the desert. He sent his minister to the foundry with a message that chilled the founder to the bone. If the great bell was not cast within one final attempt, his head would rest upon the executioner's block. The decree was absolute. The emperor's word was iron, and there was no mercy in it, no second chance. That night, the master founder sat alone, staring into the dying embers. His daughter found him there, his face gaunt and gray in the dim glow, his hands trembling. He could not eat, could not sleep, could not speak of the doom that hung over him like a suspended blade. She knelt beside him, her heart breaking at this strong man brought so low. She wept in silence, not for herself, but for him. The daughter could not bear to see her father condemned.
Before dawn, she slipped out and climbed to the temple of the old sage in the hills above the city.
This ancient man was said to have spoken with spirits of fire and metal, to know secrets ordinary craftsmen could never glimpse.
She knelt before him and begged him to reveal why the great bell refused to yield to her father's skill. The old sage looked at her with eyes that burned like coals, and what he told her struck colder than winter wind. The metals, he said, were proud and stubborn spirits.
They would never blend unless fed the lifeblood of a young maiden, freely given.
Only then would copper and tin marry. Only then would the bell find its voice. The secret had been known since the ancient kings, and always demanded the same terrible price.
The daughter walked home in silence, and the morning light had lost its warmth.
She did not weep, did not tremble, did not hesitate.
She thought of her father's face in the firelight, the trembling hands, the gray despair, and knew what she must do. She would not tell him. She spent the day as always, grinding pigments, sweeping the floor, smiling at the workers, and no one saw the storm inside her quiet heart.
The final casting day arrived, and the foundry was thick with tension.
The emperor's minister stood watching, guards resting hands on sword hilts.
The master founder gave the order, and the furnace roared back to life like thunder in a canyon. The molten metal surged and churned, a sea of white-hot fire dancing within walls of clay and brick. The daughter stood nearby, watching, waiting, her face calm as still water.
The signal was given. The molten river poured, but the old curse returned. The metals hissed and separated, copper darkening from tin, silver pulling from gold. The flow sputtered and slowed, hardening at the mold's edges.
The founder cried out, thrusting his tools into the blaze, desperate to stir the stubborn metals together.
Nothing worked. The officials shook their heads, the guards shifted, and the founder buried his face in his hands, knowing it was over. In that moment, the daughter moved. No one saw her climb the platform beside the furnace. No one heard her whisper her father's name, a word swallowed by the roar of flames. Then she stepped forward and threw herself into the molten sea.
The fire consumed her instantly, and a column of white light burst upward, blinding everyone.
The master founder screamed her name, lost in the roar that shook the very foundations of the city. Then something miraculous happened. The metals, which had refused to blend through 100 attempts, suddenly flowed as one. Copper married tin, gold embraced silver, and the molten river poured into the mold smooth and perfect, glowing with a light that seemed almost alive. The foundry fell silent. The master founder stood motionless, tears streaming down his soot-streaked face, understanding what his daughter had done, what love had willingly paid. When the great bell was raised and hung in the bell tower of Peking, they struck it for the first time, and its voice rolled across the city like a wave from the sea. Deep and pure and immeasurably sad, it carried the weight of an entire life. Those who heard it said that within its ringing, faint but unmistakable, was the word the daughter spoke as she fell, the word for mother, like a child's last farewell. The great bell of Peking rang for centuries, its mournful voice calling at dawn and dusk, and every generation heard the daughter's farewell woven into its tone. The story became one of China's most beloved legends, a testament to filial devotion, the deepest virtue in the Chinese heart. It reminds us